Come on, everyone sit down and listen to the greatest debate in all of history. We'll give you everything that you've been missing. Introducing Nothing Specialty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nothing Specialty Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris, and joining me, as always, is Ben.
How you all doing today? Guess you can't answer that.
Oh, I only heard day. So this is part of the problem with Discord. Kind of sucks. So what did you say?
I asked how they were all doing today, but then I realized...
Yeah. I think the audience could respond in the comments and not. So we'll just leave a space. How are you doing, everyone?
Respond to my shitty greeting in the comments, everyone.
Cricket. Anyways, yeah, so I've been pretty good. Been working, finished the semester at college, so that was fantastic. Finals, not too big of a deal for finals. There were only 2 classes that really had a final. The other 2, like one was the tournament, the debate tournament that I mentioned last episode, and another was just like an online quiz that because it was an online class. But yeah, so the finals wasn't too big of a deal for me.
That's good.
It was pretty good. So how about you? You sound pretty rough.
Yeah, I'm getting over something, some sort of illness.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, and when you work for a living, you don't usually get time to just sit back and get over it, sadly. So I'm slowly but surely just getting over it. But yeah, other than that, I've been working a lot. Oh, due to our conversation last week, I started playing Breath of the Wild again.
Oh, how are you liking that?
Oh, it's one of my favorite games. It's every time I play it, I go, this is why I own a Switch. Like, there's other games I have for it. Obviously, the first Dark Souls, I enjoy playing on it. Stuff like that. But
wait, is Dark Souls on the Switch?
The first one, the Dark Souls remastered. Oh. Yeah. So in fact, it's a lot of the complaints people had about the original Dark Souls. I guess there was like a mod that they put on the PC for a lot of the complaints. All those problems are solved on the remastered version. So
so they fixed a lot of the glitches and stuff.
I don't know if it was like glitches or just like quality of life things. I just know that someone had told me that they fixed a lot of the things people had complained about. So, okay. Which I'm playing Dark Souls 1 for the first time on the Switch, so I would know.
Yeah.
I just know it's a very fluid game on there, so I enjoy it. And obviously being able to take that game on the go is always really nice. But and now I'm just waiting for whenever the next Doom hits it, for the next game I buy for it.
Yeah, of all the gaming systems, I feel like I've played the Switch the most. It's just so versatile and has like enough games that are really fun to where it's just that's all you really need. Like it's nice to have an Xbox One or a PS4 so you can play like the Kingdom Hearts 3 or like the big games that come out, like maybe the new Call of Duty or whatever. But like most of everything else gets ported to the Switch and it's just fine there. And it's surprising to me. I thought that it would be a lot more focused on like gaming on the run, like mobile kind of stuff. But it's really because of the way they designed the controllers to where you can put 2 together and it's basically the same as an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. You can like do anything that the other games can do on the Switch. So you don't have to make any kind of special arrangements when you port. You just have to transfer the data and the programming over into that language. I don't even know if it's a different language or if it's, I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Like I know graphically it's not as good, but a lot of the games I get for it, that's not really relevant to me. I believe graphics come second to gameplay. So, and I don't know. I like the idea of being able to take my game on the go if I wanted to. Kind of helps me feel better about it.
You have that option, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, does Skyrim look as good? No, but I always thought even the remastered versions just looked good. They didn't look like, oh my god, I have to own this amazing thing to play this. So to me,
yeah, the only way to really make Skyrim look the way it should is with a completely tricked out gaming rig and HD mods applied and everything. Like, other than that, you'll see a lot of repeated textures and a lot of like janky forestry going on, and mountainery going on. Like, it's not that pretty. Like, it's cool to look out over a vast landscape like that's far away and distant and misty, but if you get up close to the trees and the ground and the shrubs, it doesn't look very good unless you've got all of that power behind it.
Yeah,
which is cool that it has the capability of getting there. It just sucks that you have to spend so much money in order to actually get it.
Exactly, and I'm just not that dedicated. So
yeah.
In fact, I think I would have played the Switch a lot more than my Xbox One if it had come out first and a while ago and come out with all the games it now has. Because the thing is, games that came out years ago are coming out on it. And it's like, it's not that I wouldn't want to play them on the Switch. It's that I'm not willing to spend the money to buy a game I already
buy them
own.
Again. Yeah.
So so that's probably the biggest thing for me. Is just that.
Well, cool. I just barely finished listening to a book. I do say listening rather than reading because as a security guard, I'm walking around doing a whole lot of nothing most of the day, just being a warm body. And so to have a little earbud in my ear listening to a book or a podcast is just
keeps really your sanity.
Good. Yeah. So over like 3 or more 8-hour shifts, I finally finished this book. It's insanely long. It's called The Name of the Wind is the first in the series, but the second one that I just finished is The Wise Man's Fear. And it's got a third book that's on its way, but it sure is taking its sweet time, just like George R.R. Martin. It is, he's taking his sweet time. And in fact, the Wise Man's Fear came out a couple months before the latest book in the Song of Fire and Ice. So, the people that are fans of this guy are waiting even longer, and I don't remember the artist, the author's name. I feel bad, but it's pretty fantastic, and I've really enjoyed it. Have you ever heard of either of them?
I don't think I have, sadly. What's like the genre?
Oh, it's like fantasy. Olden times, but like from the beginning there was magic, and so magic and science grew up together, so they don't fight. they get along, and they're studied in the same place. But it's not magic like Harry Potter magic or like even Lord of the Rings magic. It's a very scientific kind of magic.
More like Full Metal Alchemist.
Energy and manipulating it. So say it again?
Like Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah, it's a lot similar to that, and there is alchemy in it as well. Not in the same way that there is in Full Metal Alchemist, but there's basically there's the university, and there's a lot of different branches to it, and alchemy is one of them. But there's also sigildry or something like that. The artificing, basically making things, and all of the things that you can do, like with energy, manipulating energy, turning heat into motion or motion into light, or so on and so forth, and connecting things from one to another so they transfer energy between each other, like all that kind of stuff you can do with runes on actual objects, so that you don't actually do it.
Okay.
And most of it, like, basically it's in metal, and metal stores a lot of heat, so basically when the sigildry is activated and whatever effect happens, the metal just gets cold because it's using the energy that's in the metal to transfer that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
So like as an example, you put runes on 2 bells that link them, and then when you ring one, the other rings. So you can have them miles apart. You ring one, and then the other, no matter where it is, it moves the same way and it rings.
Gotcha.
And so that's what the one thing that you can do with this kind of sigildry and magic in that way. And so it follows a guy who is legendary during his life, but he settled down to be like an innkeeper, and he's not really that old, but he's just kind of waiting to die. And it's kind of goes into what happened during his whole journey. He retells his whole story to a traveling guy that's famous for writing down stories and stuff.
Okay.
And so he's giving his full story to this guy because he wants it to be told, at least, by his own mouth, and not all of the crazy, out of proportion, tales that everyone told about quoth the bloodless, but his actual story and why it became that way.
Gotcha.
And so it's a mystery then, like what happened to Quoth to make him this innkeeper, and it's kind of it keeps that mystery there. And in fact the series is called the King Killer Chronicles, but at the end of the second of 3 books, we still have no idea why.
Okay.
So it's like there's a lot of mystery and a lot of secrets, and a very unique world with unique magic and cool stuff happening, and a very interesting lore and story behind it all.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I look forward to whenever that gets out.
Okay.
And reading the rest of that. But so far it has been a fantastic journey and a really cool thing. So if you had time to listen to books or anything or read them, then I would suggest that series.
Gotcha. All right. I will definitely keep an eye out for that one then.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's about time to start our first topic.
Agreed. So our first topic for today is going to be which fantasy world would you want to live in? And I came up with 4 options.
Okay.
So the first one is Harry Potter.
Okay.
Second is Lord of the Rings.
Cool.
Third, Looney Tunes.
Okay.
And fourth is Pokemon. I wanted like, obviously fictional spans a lot of different options, but I wanted some like conflicting genres.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I didn't want it to just be which epic fantasy world do you wish to live in kind of thing,
Yeah, I think just looking at it at face value, I'm gonna gut reaction would be to go with Pokemon, because that Detective Pikachu, I just about cried when I saw Pidgeotos flying through the air as if they were regular birds. I was just like, this world.
So
that's all I ever wanted.
So I should clarify there will be some rules for this conversation.
Okay.
So you have to take all the good and the bad, and you don't get to like go, oh well, what if this is what this universe was actually like? Yeah,
you can't change it. You have to.
Yeah, it's like in our universe, you can't be like, well, in mine, Hitler was never born. It's like, no, that's not how this works. So like if you're in the Harry Potter universe, you can pick whatever time frame you have, or you could even kind of pick a time frame, because there's a lot of time frames to go through for both.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get to change events. So like the events that happen still happen.
Yeah.
And also you're yourself. You aren't some character. So
okay. But as myself in Harry Potter's world, would I be a Muggle or would I be a wizard?
We're gonna assume you get to participate in the fantasy of it if you want to. Like if you in this universe, like if you were in the Lord of the Rings one, you're a human.
Okay.
But you get to participate in that universe. In Looney Tunes, you're still a cartoon character, but you don't get to be Bugs Bunny. You don't get to choose. You don't get to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like,
Yeah.
you are you. So,
Okay. But
the
just
two
a
ground
cartoon
rules
version
are
of you,
you don't
or-
get to change events that are going on in it, and you are not one of the named characters.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I mean, so let's go down the list and talk about the pros and cons. Unless did you have a gut reaction like what you would choose?
I mean, I came up with the topic, so I got to think more on it than anyone else did. So I'd like to actually hear you.
Well, I already said that Pokemon is my gut reaction, my first impression of it.
So, Lord of the Rings, I think, is like the best written book series ever, and it's my favorite book series. So, and all you Game of Thrones fans are wrong. So, just throwing that out there. But as much as I want to say I would love to be in that universe, a lot of bad shit happens in that universe.
Yeah.
I'm just as likely to heroically save Minas Tirith or Numenor as I am to be eaten by a dragon or stabbed by a ringwraith.
Yeah.
Or have my neck bitten by an orc. Like, I have to take the good with the bad there.
Yeah.
But like, that's the one where I instantly am like, oh my gosh, I want to wear Gondor armor.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go down and let's discuss the pros and cons of each one.
Okay.
Is there any, let's start with Pokemon. I don't want to just go 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Let's start with Pokemon.
So, Pokemon. Pro, there's Pokemon, but con, there's Pokemon. And that means you could get hurt by them, because I'm sure they're dangerous in the wild. If you don't have your team ready and ready to defend you, then you could get, trampled on by some giant Pokemon that's just, wandered out from behind a tree, So,
I mean, one could argue that the physics of that world, like, obviously people are just more durable, but we also do know for a fact that these people can die, and from a result of the world, because it's mostly in the movies they bring up death.
Yeah.
But I for the purposes of the conversation, I'm considering those a part of it. I'm not sure what is and isn't canon usually in the Pokemon universe, but for the purpose of our conversation, it's canon.
I don't know, and I think if you're living in a city, like, your normal day life would probably be unaffected. It's just kind of like they're replacing most wild animals in their job. So, like, do you run into a bear every once in a while? You're probably not going to run into a Dragonite then, in your everyday life. So, like, for the most part, I think you'd probably be safe. It's just that if you were to go camping, if you were like part of the Boy Scouts growing up, it would inherently change that. It would make it so that Pokemon have to be a part of that in order to just keep everyone safe. You can't go wandering off into the woods, because what if you run into a Nidoran that's defending its young and it starts attacking you? It's hard to. And so, like, you would have to all stay safe and all be in the campsite, and the campsite would have to be defended by Pokemon and adult trainers, But I guess, like, that wouldn't really change what you do there that much. I guess it would just change mainly the dynamic of, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, being a Pokemon trainer, while it sounds fun, is probably going to be similar to being a rock star. Not everyone's going to make it. And so you're probably going to be the guy that gets beaten by the Pokemon League champion on the road, not the guy that becomes the Pokemon League champion. And so that makes it a little less appealing, but still you get to play with Pokemon. And so that benefit, that pro is just, I don't know if I can find cons that outweigh it,
like I'm trying to think because obviously like the series is a episodic, so it's like, you know, for the most part, it's a week to week activity. But I get the strange feeling. I'm pretty sure Ash is getting some sort of funding from his mom and maybe Professor Oak.
Yeah.
Like, we're seeing it from one guy's perspective. Because realistically, if you think about it, if everyone could just wander around and make money being a Pokemon trader, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
And Ash, while he's not a bad Pokemon trader, is definitely not like, he's not top tier by any means. Not that he couldn't be. I'm just saying, like just from his win to losses and how far he's gone, like I'm not sure if he's won a major tournament yet, but I know like when I stopped watching, which was, I think was Black and White, he hadn't won a league yet. So,
and that does
and
bring
all
up,
his strong Pokemon he would always just let go. So, but like everyone else has jobs in that universe for the most part.
Yeah. There's plenty of people that
don't involve being a Pokemon trainer.
Yeah.
So, would you actually get to play around with Pokemon as much as you think so, or is Ash like the equivalent of the rich kid whose parents bought him a car and he can go fuck off and do whatever he wants?
Yeah. I feel like that also brings into question what all we're pulling from. You know, there's of course the anime, but there was a manga before that did not have Ash in it. That was Red. And Red had the adventure, and the manga was, I think, based off of the first, Red and Blue and Yellow games for the Game Boy. So, like, the original source material would be the video games, the handheld games, and while they paint a pretty similar picture because the anime and the manga and stuff were inspired by it, there are differences, and there's been since then spin-offs.
One big difference too is the violence in the manga is like really bad. Mewtwo gets stabbed through the chest with a spoon.
Oh my gosh.
Or was it Deoxys? Yeah, no, it's like violent. Like Pokemon die in the manga.
Well.
Yeah, it's more like an actual anime like Bleach or Naruto than it is the actual children's anime.
I feel like if Pokemon were real, depending on whether we go by the anime or the manga or the games, if Pokemon were real, I feel like they would fulfill a very similar role that like pets and animals do. So maybe your household might have a Pokemon as a pet, and you could
but most likely it's like a normal type or not a special.
Yeah,
you don't have a Dragonite as your pet, obviously.
Yeah. That's mainly for fighting and adventuring, but like you could have
just rare.
a little Growlithe or something. Maybe Growlithe would be a little more expensive, but like Rattata's would be everywhere, I'm sure. And maybe like Meowths and Persians in a sometimes, there would be a lot of that going on. And in Detective Pikachu, that whole city, and I'm sure I'm not sure, but there's probably more cities like it, had, you had your Pokemon like companion. You didn't really do much in that city without your Pokemon. And, so if you were doing a job, your Pokemon companion was doing the job too. Like they were everywhere. And so in that sense, even if you weren't adventuring, even if you were a receptionist at apartment complex, you still had a Pokemon and you were like with it.
Do you think that would get boring after a while though?
Well,
like the reason we find Pokemon to be so enthralling is because they aren't real and we get to either play out in the games or imagine all these adventures with them. But like realistically, the way you're describing it, like the magic of it is kind of gone. Like it's just like, oh, I woke up with my, I don't know, like Ponyta today and rode it across the ranch herding Tauros. Like what we've just described is no different from a rancher's life.
Yeah, except
and I just gave you a pretty well, true, but I gave you a pretty good. I also like most people aren't ranchers.
Yeah,
like so. Right off the bat, I'm making you a special case. So like, let's actually do the opposite. Like I have a pet, like I have 2 dogs. Let's say I have 2 of I think like Pucciana or what I think is what it's called.
Yeah. Let's say maybe like a Houndor and a Pucciana.
Yeah. Other than having to make sure I didn't have too many dried weeds in my backyard so they don't catch the yard on fire, my life wouldn't be too much different. Like I'd just have 2 dogs that chill on the bed with me.
But they would be freaking awesome dogs.
Yeah,
I mean, but even again, so, does owning your dogs,
perspective, you know?
Does owning your dogs right now get old? Like, I'm sure you love them, and I love my dog.
Oh no, I love my dogs.
So you'd love the Pokemon too. They wouldn't get old. It would be.
Yeah, but like the best way I can put it is, like we love our video games and stuff, but like to someone 50 years ago, those like sound like something off Star Trek. Like, it's just what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like once you're actually using the thing that you're imagining would be so awesome, and once you get accustomed to it, it loses some of its mystique. And if you're a Pokemon trainer, it'd be a bit different because you get to go around and travel and like experience more. But again, we're assuming you're like, you know, you're like we just discussed, that's probably like the rock star life. Mm-hmm. The majority of people don't get to be Ash Ketchum. The majority of people are the kid Ash Ketchum saves.
Yeah. But I see that, and I think I would file that not under a con for the Pokemon in and of itself, but maybe a con compared to the other worlds. So like in this contrived way, like we have one choice to make. We have to choose between one of these 4 worlds. So Pokemon compared to those might
Pokemon's
not be
the
as
safest
good
so far from what we discussed,
because like it's not going to be new and fresh every single day. It's mundane. Once you get used to the fact that there's Pokemon around. I see that, but I think we'll have to move on to the others to determine if that in and of itself is enough to win over, because I really don't see much beyond that as cons for the Pokemon world. So we'd have to.
Agreed. I agree.
So we'll see if one of the other 3 is so much better, then it could beat out Pokemon. But I think in and of itself, you could do a lot worse than living in the Pokemon world. You know.
Agreed. So let's start with one I don't think is. Let's do our next one. One I definitely don't think is going to win. Let's do the Lord of the Rings one.
Really, you don't think that one's going to win? Yeah.
Oh no. Look, again, we're doing who we are in real life.
Yeah.
And in real life, like for me, I actually I do martial arts competitions. I've worked out my whole life. My parents made me go to Taekwondo when I was 5 years old. So like to me, that all already sounds just exciting. Mm-hmm. Just the whole concept of it. And I grew up reading the books, obviously.
Yeah.
But realistically, most people don't get a very happy ending. And even the people who do have to suffer a lot for it. So
yeah,
like for me, it would have to come down to like, I'm definitely one of those people who works really hard. Like I enjoy working maybe a bit too much. I make my life a bit too busy. So maybe to me that would be worth it because I already kind of do that in my real life. Mm-hmm. I overwork myself. That being said, I think for your average person, it would be a really shitty universe to be living in.
Yeah.
And I guess it also depends. Like, if you have to be a human, it's definitely a lot worse than if you get to be an elf.
Yeah.
Or even one of like the special wildlife, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely some points against it.
Yeah.
I think.
Bright side, there are magical trees everywhere, dragons.
Yeah. You wouldn't be bored.
And metal that for some reason can't be broken. Mm-hmm. Like, if you are participating in like the adventure and you actually really, if you're one of those people where you could actually, you know, you're a bit broken in the head like I am, and you want to go on that Hobbit adventure with the dwarves, and that sounds fun, it's phenomenal. if you're more like Bilbo, and by Bilbo I mean, or I guess I should say Bilbo, if you're more like normal hobbits and you just want to chill at home and smoke your weed and eat your food, it's definitely not the one for you. It's for a special kind of person.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a fair way to look at it.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, like, what was I going to say? There's also, like, we're coming from our lives to this fictional universe, and I have a lot of conveniences in my life right now, most of which I would be giving up if I were to jump into the Lord of the Rings universe, you know? And I don't know if I'm ready to do that.
Agreed. That'd be one of the hardest parts.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, Lord of the Rings, definitely if you want to live a fantasy, that's what it is. That's the reality of it. But it's definitely not for people who just want to chill.
Yeah, so not for me.
All right. Let's go to one that you don't necessarily have to be a big hero in. The Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
I would say cons right off the bat. There always seems to be something crazy going on.
Well, it wouldn't be an interesting series if there wasn't.
Yeah, I know. And if you think our politics are bad, we don't discuss. I guess our country used to. We don't currently discuss banning or possibly enslaving and killing entire groups of people anymore. Like we used to have that. But that's not like a legitimate political conversation anymore in our day and age.
I mean, it depends on who you ask, but I don't know, let's not go there.
I mean, all right, I'm going to exclude the annoying minority. Like, the majority of people aren't like, there's this group of people called Muggles, and I really wouldn't mind it if, they all just went and burned to death. Also, and we should, I want to clarify timeline. So I know that the final book takes place the year the first book was released. So book 7 takes place the year book 1 was released in our real world. In other words, the 90s.
Oh, okay.
So that means in this wizarding world in the 90s, these wizards are discussing killing races of people. Yeah. So this is not saying like, oh, well, we'd be living in our day and age and this wouldn't be a discussion. No, this was a discussion in pretty modern times.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how the wizarding world would react to our current progressive shift in our politics. Like, I wonder if they would follow that at all, or if they would just stick to Hogwarts and their own, worries.
I think they would consider anything we do beneath them, to be honest. For the most part, unless you're like one of the Weasleys who studies Muggles. Yeah, and that's the other thing. They if you're not a wizard, you're being studied by wizards, as though you're an oddity. So. That being said, so the cons is all the conflict and crazy, like, weird hate going on. But that being said, the majority of the wizarding world seems to kind of have a go with the flow attitude. And then you have and it seems like there's always two sides who are like, one's really extreme and the other side just doesn't want the extreme side to win.
Yeah.
Like Voldemort's very old school conservative, has a rebel flag in his basement and wholeheartedly believes that this certain group of people should be in the fields picking cotton. Like that kind of old school, not like modern. Like I wouldn't say modern GOP people are like that. Like I wouldn't make that comparison. But I will compare him to he's racist. Like there's no other way to put it.
I thought Lincoln was a Republican though.
dude. Uh, they change. I guess technically,
Yeah.
like if we wanted to be, so when I say old school conservative, I mean like 50s conservative. If we go back to the 1800s, then conservatives and Democrats are kind of flipped. Or sorry, Democrats and Republicans are flipped in like the 1800s. But that's also like so far back that the words just have such a different meaning. It's kind of an irrelevant lateral to make, if that makes sense. Because like old
Southern, so just say the old South.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll say
that'll make it easier.
Old South. Yeah, that makes more sense. Sorry, I'm like thinking Family Guy or Simpsons when I made that comparison. Like, satire. So yeah, old Southern, like, has some really some thoughts you don't bring up at Thanksgiving dinner unless you want to make things awkward. The upsides though, they can do practically anything with magic. They don't study math in the schools, at least conventionally, if you look at it. Like, I'm sure there's like basic math, but they don't study arithmetics, but it makes sense. They need to know addition and basic multiplication, probably for the most part, because they're mostly learning.
Potion making would include some chemistry.
I mean,
but
it includes chemistry, but it's
chemistry.
Not exactly. That's the thing, though, is if you actually like look at like the Half-Blood Prince. Look at how the potion was made in that. It was very like
I don't even remember.
The best way, it's the old school, like archaic way that you expect people to make a potion or chemistry. There's no sitting there on a chalkboard and making sure your calculations are exact. It's literally just describing how to, like, it's like they're baking a cake. It's just if you fuck up baking the cake, you can blow up the room. But but it's more like cooking than it is math. In fact,
but someone had to make that recipe.
True, but when you look, like, the best way I can describe it is Harry gets the Half-Blood Prince's book, which turns out to be Snape.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers. Not really. It's been out for a while. If you haven't figured this out by now, it's on you. Anyways, and Snape's like the thing Snape has like writes down in his notes for Harry to do to make, to give him the potion that was better than anything Professor Slughorn had ever had. Were very, they weren't like, oh, make sure you get 3/4 of this instead of, putting the whole thing in of this ingredient. It was set, like he said, crush it instead of cutting up this thing. That's the kind of thing I would tell you to do, like when cooking.
Yeah.
With like an herb to get a specific like flavor or texture out of it. So to like, it very much is more like old school cooking than it is like following some sort of equation. So don't get me wrong, that requires actually a lot more memorization. So they have to have a lot more books and knowledge at hand to do their stuff. However, it's more about knowing how to get your information and properly apply it than having than having to be like really good at like arithmetic, if that makes sense.
Yeah. They're not going to have to take the derivative of a function.
Yeah. Sucking at math would be less relevant to them. And that's why a lot of the kids who do dumbass things in the movies and books still go on to have a job and a life in the wizarding world. Because at the end of the day, a lot of their stuff is stupid proof. Also, you have a wand and you say some words and you can make things happen. Like,
yeah.
Let's take a poor family like the Weasleys. When you look at how they live, it's still magical to us. Like, it looks so cool. Because at the end of the day, they're the poor ones, and yet they still have, like, the old school Disney Fantasia movie, brooms sweeping the floors for them.
Yeah.
And the dishes washing themselves. And sweaters being knitted for themselves. Like, if you are good enough with magic, there's practically like your life is just good. There's just no other way of putting it.
Yeah.
And heck, the Goblet of Fire, when they go into the tent and like it's like, oh, we're all sharing this small tent and it's a mansion. Those are the poor family who has access to that.
Yeah. It's a very leveling thing, being able to flick your wrist and your wand and say something and have it happen. You know, it levels the playing field a lot, because I'm sure like they probably just had that small tent and then they enchanted it themselves probably. So maybe like the rich ones could just buy it pre-enchanted, but like as long as you know what you're doing, you can do anything. Really.
Yeah, it's true. And let's just go like the main, like the Hufflepuff, the creator or the originator of the Hufflepuff house. All the houses contributed something to Hogwarts, all the founders. Hers was creating a kitchen that never runs out of food and a goblet that never runs out of wine. So they like, if you're good enough at magic, you can solve hunger for yourself. Like, you'll never have to worry about where your next meal is coming from.
Yeah.
Obviously cons would be some of the magical creatures are kind of crazy, but their equivalent of animal control is pretty badass. So, you know, again, someone like me who might like crazier stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're telling me I get to round up dragons for a living? That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's a lot of interesting things. Like I think it's one of the ones I would definitely debate being in, like, because for that one, I don't think it could ever get old, because also magic evolves just like science does for people. For example, in the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, there was no there was no mass, like, make everyone forget the magic things you just saw spell. But in the main Harry Potter trilogy, that exists. And we know it exists because they have to mass obliviate people when Ron and Harry fly their car and the dragon and everything through London.
Yeah, so, Lockhart himself. That whole story is based off of erasing memories.
Exactly. So magic evolves and they come up with new things, which means it isn't a stagnation. It isn't like people who aren't like with the Pokemon, for an example. If you're not a Pokemon trainer, you're kind of stuck with your local Pokemon and local area unless a Pokemon trainer comes through or you're watching TV. Yeah. But you don't get to experience it in person, whereas wizards would get to experience a lot of that in person. And they'd get to be a part of that evolution. And and because, like I said, it's a lot, because the world revolves around the magic. A lot more, like, you know,
the wizarding world.
Everyone in, the wizarding world revolves around the magic. We're assuming you're a part of that.
Yeah.
Everyone's a wizard, whereas in Pokemon, not everyone is a Pokemon trainer.
But in some cities, everyone has a Pokemon.
True, but I feel like, again, it would be less. I would personally find it less enjoyable unless I was a Pokemon trainer. And we established that is rare, and to assume that I am good enough to become one would be unfair for the purposes of the conversation. I have to assume I am probably going to be average.
But heck, there's probably even, like, if you're interested in Pokemon, you can get jobs like at Pokemon daycares and stuff like that, where you can interact with lots of Pokemon on a daily basis and not have to be able to, like, support yourself with your own, you know, how good you are at competition and stuff with the Pokemon training. So there are alternatives to, you know, to assuming that you are going to be successful at something. You know, that's a regular job, being at a daycare, you know, like, yeah, that's an entry level job here, like at PetSmart, being in the hotel, the pet hotel, you know, playing with the dogs. Like that's just something that teenagers do to get a quick buck. You know, it's there. You don't need lots of training to do that, and at least for non-exotic Pokemon, I think it would probably be the same for a daycare in the Pokemon world. So like, you're participating in magic in the Harry Potter, but there's many ways that you could easily participate with Pokemon in the Pokemon world. So I don't think that's
I just don't feel like it's on. I don't feel like it's on this
thing.
I don't feel like it's at the same level, though. You know, like.
Well, what if you suck at magic? You know, like.
Well, you probably don't become a wizard. Like, you have to pass your Hogwarts exams to become a wizard who can legally practice magic. Mm-hmm. Like you have to graduate. That is something. I know in like the older, I believe in Fantastic Beasts, they make an exception for Newt, but I know in like the Harry Potter series, if you wish to be a wizard and practice wizardry in your everyday life, you have to like pass your academic courses.
Mm-hmm. And it's
I feel like it's a lot easier.
Seen the same as
for
like
people to do that.
High school, where most people are good and enough to go through it all. Like you don't have very many dropping out. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I mean, we don't see it, and for the most part, like I said, there's some idiots we see, and they definitely graduate.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the one kid who constantly blows everything up, like that's his gimmick through the whole series.
Yeah.
He passes. He graduates. Neville Longbottom becomes one of the most badass wizards ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in real life becomes a supermodel.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so I feel like the abilities to succeed and be a part of it is just a lot more there. But I also guess it depends on what you're looking at it from. I would enjoy the Pokemon world less if I was not participating in the majesticness that is like being a Pokemon trainer. But you might not.
I don't know. I feel like we may have actually sold it a little short in our first run on Pokemon, because it seems like if they've got a big building in the center of almost every town that is a Pokemon gym, that is, you know, that has a gym leader that people challenge regularly, like maybe we're underestimating how many people actually participate in the Pokemon adventures, you know?
Possibly. There might be a lot more trainers than we realize.
It might not be a rock star thing, and might be just like a...
I would say as adults, though, it's less common. I would say as adults, though, it's less common. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it's something you do
and we're
in
adults.
your youth.
Yeah.
Well, but like the adults,
so
you wouldn't become a master or a gym trainer or something, but you'd still be able to, like a lot of the hikers or other people you run into that are Pokemon trainers. Plus, like the Pokemon world in the games is lousy with trainers to battle. So that's also a point in favor that maybe it's a lot easier to get into. And maybe it's just something they do on a weekend. You know, they have a Pokemon team and they work at it and they catch it on their own. You know, it doesn't take a lot of money investment to start with, but then you have your day job that you go to keep the world running. And you know, that's
very possible.
It wouldn't be that hard to have Pokemon training as a hobby. And of course, if it's a hobby, you're never gonna be a champion. But if the joy comes from the journey of working with Pokemon and training them, then that's all that you really need in the end, right?
I guess I could see that.
So I think it's pretty equal with the opportunity for participating in Pokemon battles and training as there is opportunity to participate in wizarding life.
The only thing I would say is the ability to get a lot of the exotic Pokemon would be a lot less. The part of the fun of Pokemon, at least in the game, is collecting the new Pokemon. I think your average person would not get to go collect an entire PC box full of Pokemon.
Well, if you can train a Pidgey, you catch a Pidgey from your neighborhood, you know, park, and then train it and evolve it to be a Pidgeot, the Pidgeot could fly you to wherever you want, across oceans even. Like, you don't even have to save up to buy a plane ticket. You could literally use your Pokemon and work hard enough to be able to do that and fly on your own to those other places to catch, those exotic Pokemon.
Unlike in the games, though, and like the anime, using your Pokemon to travel is actually very dangerous.
Well,
it almost always ends poorly for the trainers. I would just like to throw that out there. In the games, they treat it as a game mechanic. In the shows, it actually is treated as something that is dangerous. In fact, Mewtwo uses people traveling through a storm as a prerequisite to whether or not they're good enough to even be at his little tournament.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it wasn't a bad storm. However, I would like to point out that I don't know how bad it could have been since the team of Pokemon trainers made the trip with a Squirtle and I think it was a Starmie at the time. It might have been a Staryu.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the other guy got through with a Gyarados. And so all the other people kind of just plowed through, and they had some really what you would consider badass Pokemon by comparison.
Yeah.
And Ash and his team actually barely make it. Like, they do nearly drown.
So even if you had to buy a plane ticket, that's like not unheard of dangerous. For a hardworking citizen. We're assuming we're not impoverished in this world.
Yeah, we're just who we are, so we're not impoverished. But I'm simply pointing out, but with your day job, is it really that easy to go travel and grab a Tyranitar when it's in a different region?
Well, most jobs have a certain amount of hours every year that you're allowed to have vacation, time. So, and
but you have to afford the trip to go. You have to afford the trip to go, and that's your trip, is to go collect a new Pokemon.
Yeah, that would be
fantastic. You have to pay for the hotel and everything. I guess I don't consider that. But again, we're assuming you live in a region, not all regions have all the exotic stuff. So I feel like it's a lot harder to get new fantastic Pokemon than you're giving it credit for.
I mean, take Pokemon Go, for instance. You can get most Pokemon from, your own
I am not
room,
considering Pokemon Go a part of this legitimate conversation. That game is not Pokemon.
Even still, there are region-specific Pokemon that you can actually get by flying to Europe and, having a vacation in Europe. And one of the things you do is try to find a Mr. Mime, it's...
Okay, can either of us afford a trip to Europe?
Well, many people can.
Okay, there we go. There we go. That's my argument.
So maybe it would have to be after I'm done with college and working as an engineer or something, but eventually I would like to travel to Europe.
Can your dad afford to just go to Europe?
What? Oh, no, but he's
your dad afford
stupid with debt.
There you go. That's my argument.
My brother probably will be able to, and he's an engineer.
Most people can't just get up and go to Europe. That is not normal.
Well,
most Americans cannot do that. That is not normal. I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying no one can. I'm just saying I would say that over 51% of Americans.
You'd have to work really hard to do it. But who's to say we can't?
And then the argument,
I don't know.
I mean,
I guess it's a lot.
But if that's a lot of work to go get a Tyranitar. Let's move on to
but there's also trading,
because that's our last one.
You could just it would cost more money, but you could someone else that did go there and could travel a bunch could sell you one, and that would be fine, or trade you one,
Hey, I'd like to trade my shitty Pidgey for your Tyranitar.
Well, maybe you trained it so it's not so shitty after all, I don't know.
I'd like to trade you this basic ass bitch for your pseudo legendary, please.
Besides, a bunch of maybe it's common in your area, but he traveled from a different area and is going around he's a Pokemon trainer and battled you and wants to trade for one of your local ones because it's rare to him. and so you get one from his area, from his region. It could happen. It could happen. Anyway, I was just.
I feel like it's a lot harder than you're giving it credit for. Still,
No.
It's a lot of work. I feel like I get it. For you, it'd be worth it, but I'm thinking like for me, like it's kind of like the whole Lord of the Rings would be worth it for me.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the best one for people to be wanting to live in overall.
Well, but in the end,
Pokemon I would put it in the same category.
This isn't like what would be the best one for anyone to live in. It's what's the best one for me.
I guess it's like best one.
And you.
I guess that's fair. That's fair.
But anyways, we haven't even touched on Looney Tunes. So what's up with that one?
Yeah. All right, Looney Tunes. It seems like feeling pain is not very relevant, actually. Like, if you actually think about it. There's no way pain is equivalent.
This is true.
Like,
and physics is a little questionable, too.
There is no physics. Let's just accept that there is no real physics in Looney Tunes.
Now, are we talking about like a combination, like Who Killed Roger Rabbit, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Who killed? Like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or are we talking about just straight up cartoon Foley?
I would accept both because Space Jam is a thing.
That's true.
I don't know what people's personal opinion is on Space Jam, but Space Jam is a thing. So I feel like interacting, like you are a cartoon character, but you are able to interact with the real world possibly.
Or are you a real person that has Looney Tunes everywhere?
No, that's not as fun. You're a Looney Tune. You get to be a cartoon character.
Okay. Do I get hammer space?
I'm not sure what that means.
That means you can pull objects that are way too big out of smaller things. Like Amy just reaches behind her back and pulls out a giant hammer. That's hammer space.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say you do, because that seems to be like a pretty basic ability a lot of them have. That's
that's a skill taught in the Looney Tunes college.
Yeah, it's taught to you when you go to Toon College. Yeah. Toontown College. For the most part, some of them do have more quirky abilities that are just like unique to them. But other ones seem to be kind of universal. Also, because all the animals are anthropomorphic, I would say you aren't stuck being Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
You don't get to be a named Looney Tunes character. You don't get to choose to be Bugs Bunny, because obviously everyone would want to be him if we were having this conversation. Who wouldn't want to be him? He's literally just a winner. That is him. Yeah. But that being said, like, you could be I guess Porky Pig if you wanted, or the equivalent of Porky Pig, I should say, not him specifically. You could be a duck. Could be a rabbit.
Could I design my own character?
It's a cartoon. Of course you can. That's literally what a cartoon is. It's a designed character. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I could be whatever I wanted to be. I wouldn't be forced into something that I would be unhappy with.
Yeah, you aren't like forced to be, I don't know, what's like, you aren't forced to be a skunk. Like that kind of thing.
Well, as a borderline furry, this does seem rather appealing to me. And by borderline, I mean I enjoyed Zootopia and have seen some of what the furry fandom has done, but almost never participated in any of it.
Are you trying to make me hang up on the podcast?
I don't know. It is an appealing idea to be able to be an anthropomorphic being in a world where pain isn't really as much of a thing, and physics physics bend to your will more often than not. That might be a little more appealing than Pokemon even, because that would sure be pretty crazy.
Yeah. And like I said, there are limitations. Like, obviously, Daffy Duck isn't able to use his powers to become rich and have everything he wants, because everyone else is kind of the same way. That being said, would being Daffy Duck really be that bad?
No,
Having her beak
you might
blown
get your
off every
face
now
shot
and
off
again.
every once in a while,
Yeah.
but you seem to recover just fine.
Exactly. Within moments. Yeah, I just like, I think the carefree nature of Looney Tunes is at the end of the day the best one.
But would it get boring?
Nope, because you can make it's constantly evolving, but it's literally attached to your imagination. It's better than the magic one. Because you don't need you don't need like a potion. Like you don't have to do some sort of special wizard math to make something new. You just, I don't know, you hammer a bunch of random shit together and then you've created the episode of the week because a robot is attacking Looney Town or whatever.
Yeah, you know, I think I concede. That's a little too good to give up. I might have to choose Looney Tunes.
The fanboy part of me wants to choose Lord of the Rings, but like the realist inside of me wants to choose Looney Tunes.
I think there would be less pain and suffering and less hardship and a lot more fun.
Also, you get to punch Hitler in the face.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
And there's even that racist time period. If you're racist, everyone gets something.
Wasn't that just in Disney? Did Looney Tunes actually have a racist period too?
Yeah, but I think that's just because they've been around a while. But it technically exists if you want it.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, and Bugs Bunny constantly dresses in drag, and I think he enjoys it. So if you don't conform to the two primary genders, there you go.
Looney Tunes is LGBTQ compatible.
Yep. Hell, you might even be able to find an Apache helicopter carrier. There is an airplane gremlin in one of the original episodes.
An airplane gremlin?
Yes. It is literally just walking around trying to destroy airplane pieces.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure it was making fun of the Twilight Zone.
So by that nature, could I make my Looney Tunes character that I become a different gender?
Yes.
I mean, not that I would want to. I mean, but not that there would be anything wrong with that either. But that
Monica doesn't listen to these.
So what's our serious topic?
Our serious topic will be, should the government fund college? And if so, how much of it?
Okay.
I would like to start off by pointing out I am a privileged white boy, but I know people who aren't.
Yeah.
And as a result, I'm going to tersely try to argue from their perspective.
Well, I mean, so far, I've been going to community college, and so far, it has, well, until this last semester when I moved from Arizona to Idaho, and I had out-of-state tuition, which is like 3 times more expensive at the community college. But until then, all 4 of my semesters down in Arizona were completely paid for by grants because I was not dependent on my parents' income, and I chose not to. Like, even though my dad makes like 6 figures, he wasn't supporting me at all. Like, I was living in his house, but he wasn't paying me. I had a job and everything. And so I declined to include his tax information in the FAFSA. So it only went off of what I was making, which wasn't much as a, entry level like security guard in Arizona. And so every year I would do FAFSA, and the grant would be larger than the tuition would be for community college. So for the most part, even if you're on your own and not having any support, like, you are getting paid to go to college, for community college, for pretty much everyone. Like, I don't think that was a white male privilege there. In fact, the system cuts against white males. It would give more to minorities, I believe. Or that might not be the case. That might be something else I'm thinking of that favors minorities because it's, they come up harder and with less, with more discrimination against them, possibly. But it's available to anyone, I think, is to have those grants as long as you're not making too much. And if you're making too much, then, pay for your own college or get the loans.
I think the problem comes when, so you weren't making a lot, but you also weren't paying, a lot of your own bills.
Well, I had my own car, so I was paying that bill.
Like paying rent.
For the first 2 semesters, I wasn't paying rent, but then I got married and moved in with my wife.
I guess fair enough.
And so then I had 2 incomes, but I reported 2 incomes, still got those grants, and and then had to pay rent at that point.
So I have a question. Is there any way where you would have to pay the money back? Let's say you weren't able to finish for one reason or another.
Even if you got an F, if you went to all the classes and pushed through to the end, the government would still pay for it and wouldn't ask for the money back. If you withdrew from the class and did not finish it, got a W or
what if
even,
you got kicked? Can you get kicked from the class for having an F?
You don't get kicked.
I'm just curious. Sorry.
If you get an F, you just get an F, and it'll be on your report card until you take that class again and replace it with a better grade. So if you've gotten an F in a class, it's not going to count toward your graduation. Like, you can't use that
so
class.
Essentially,
you're gonna have to take it again.
You just need to. You have to stick it through.
Yeah, you can't get a W. You can't withdraw and then stop going to class.
You need to, even if you're failing, you need to stick it through and accept that the only way this is going to be free is if you stick it through.
Yeah. And there is a time period at the beginning of the semester where you can withdraw from the class without getting a W. So you can just get out and not take it in the end. And if you do that and that drops you below full time, so if you were 13 credits, 12 credits is full time, and you take remove a class from your schedule right at the beginning, they've already paid the tuition and it's been dispersed to you. The remainder has been dispersed to you, and then you withdraw and get it refunded. Then you would have to pay that money back to the government, but the college the college refunded it to you, so you have the money if you don't spend it immediately to give back to the government. Yeah. So that's that. I think that's the only. I may be wrong. Like, there may be other circumstances where they would, like where your credits drop below a certain amount or something, and they reduce. So I guess my next question is: do
you agree with that system? Do you like it?
Well, I mean, it was certainly convenient for me, and I do like that. So now that I'm in Idaho. And I've been making money with Monica, like combined, for like a couple years. I think so. This last semester, because of the 3 times the amount of tuition for out of state, and because I've been making more money as a combined household for like 2 years, I was only given like $600 in grants for the semester, but it costed like $3,000. So I had to take loans, but the student loans were also from FAFSA. And I think like 2,000 or so were subsidized. So that means they're not even getting interest while I'm going to school. And I only have to start paying on them 6 months after I'm done with school, and then interest will start. But then I could get up to 6,000 that were unsubsidized, and I could choose how much I got. And those are all from the government, and you can't be denied for that. There's a limit for it. Like I said, 6,000 was the limit for me, but they can't say 0. They can't deny you for those loans. So I think the current system is pretty good for that. It does, like, by the end of it, if you've been making more money or so, if you'll have to rely on the loans, and by the end of it, you'll have a sizable student loan debt to pay back. But as long as you're not going to college for lesbian dance theory, you should be able to get into a profession that will make sufficient for you to be able to pay them back. So
essentially, it's good. You need to use it to get what you would consider to be a real job.
Yeah.
And that's how it pays off.
Yeah, I think college is used too much for the liberal arts, and that has been the major part of what has been hurting our, like, the college experience for people. So, like, a lot of people say, like, oh, college is useless, it's horrible. Like, there's a lot of wasted classes in general education, like, that I just barely went through. Like, you know, as an engineer, what is the knowledge of ancient to medieval art going to do for me? You know, art history. What is that going to do for me as an engineer? Zero. But I had to take it to round out an education. And it's important to get that full experience, but it's also kind of, I don't know. I can see why people have a disdain for it, because it feels like a lot of a waste of time doing all that, jumping through those.
I would argue that it is. I would argue that it is. I feel like those are classes that you should have to want to go into.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of unfair to the instructor and the other the other students that are there that want to learn that subject, if you're just there trying to squeak out as little effort as you can to get an A or whatever your standard is, maybe B, and like, because you're not as passionate as them. Like, you're not gonna go on to be an art historian. You're just taking it to fulfill a requirement. So that's kind of yeah. I wish there was some way to change the way our college system works to avoid a lot of that general education, but that is far distant from the issue at hand of trying to, like, make it free or not. I feel like our current system, while it could be improved, like, is pretty good. Like, FAFSA is a fantastic method for determining who needs it and who doesn't. And then I feel like, apart from that, so if anything, I would consent to having something like community college is always free and available to anyone who wants it, you know, paid for by the government, just like they're paying for most of people's tuition anyway. But that would avoid overpaying. Yeah. Like every single semester I've gotten money back for, you know, after they've paid for the tuition. So it would avoid that. So basically you're going and it's free, but you have to, you know, pay your own, unless you get scholarships, you have to pay your own room and board and everything like that. But if you want, like, the traditional, quote unquote, traditional experience for college, then go to a 4-year university all 4 years. If you're a poor student, though, there's always a community college that's available for free. You know, I think that would be a good system. And then FAFSA would be there, and then for if you know, for your second 2 years. So once you've got an associate, to get the rest of the bachelor's, you go to FAFSA and they'll help as much as they can or want to. And that system, I think, should just follow as is. So you use FAFSA if you're going to a 4-year university.
And to make it free, probably streamline how the credit system works for colleges, so you aren't taking classes that are irrelevant to you.
Yeah, heck, if they could basically do the bachelor's degree in the 2-year university instead of the 4, like, so you could basically be a computer and electrical engineer after 2 years of community college rather than 4 years, or in my case, at least 5 years, because I took 3 years to get the associates through community college because I had to work during. You know, if they could shorten that, cut out all the filler, the general education stuff, and just have the calculus, the physics, the chemistry, and the engineering classes that you need in order to get the knowledge you need. You know, cut out the English, cut out the extra stuff, global perspectives, you know, history, music, history. Like I took a music history class too, and a non-Western cultures class, and it's like none of that is going to be useful to me. And so if I could have avoided taking those, that would have saved me and the state a lot of money, or the government a lot of money, and I think we all, and me, a lot of time. And I think we all would have been better for it. So yeah, I think if there could be some sort of revision, I don't know if it should be from the government or if it should be from private organizations or, you know, whoever makes those curriculums. If there could just be a reevaluation of those curriculums, I think that would improve. I
think the way to make a revision happen, and I feel like this would work, is for the government to say, essentially, to get your degree, we're going to, from like a community college, from now on, you to get your government funding, you can't make people take irrelevant classes.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
I mean, it's not, they can make
forcing
arguments,
anyone, because like universities can afford specialty classes.
Yeah.
But for people who just want to, or for like community colleges, I don't see how it would hurt, because people going to community college want to get their degree and have a better life. And maybe the reason they were unable to pass in a respectable time was because of that. Maybe they got an F because of, like you said, you had a lot of time that you had to spend on stuff that didn't matter. And I do know that there's some places in Europe where if you want specialty classes, that's fine. But there's another system which I would recommend then, which is your grades have to be above and beyond to go to specialty classes. So it's not that the specialty classes don't exist. It's that you don't force them on your average person. They're a privilege. Learning about medieval history medieval art is a privilege. I know in some places in Europe, like I like paleontology, but there are places in Europe where it's very hard to become a paleontologist, because unless you are doing well in school, they do not let you take those classes because they are not going to permit someone who is incapable of passing their current classes to waste the government's time and energy and the teacher's time and energy, because they are looking to, because those classes aren't for people who aren't interested.
I feel like
in the actual field, they're for people who are interested in it.
Your grades in your other classes, though, are not necessarily indicative of your desire to learn about paleontology. So like you might
I'm aware of
suck at
that. So when I say your grades, I mean you have to do well in your science classes. If you don't do as well in your tests for your English classes, they won't knock you for that. Yeah. But if you can't pass your science classes, they don't let you move on. I'm not saying there aren't ways for those people to then move on and become paleontologists. I've recently been listening to a book about a guy who took an abnormal way to become a paleontologist because he was having a hard time with his science grades because of his living situation. And he became a paleontologist. In fact, he has discovered more than half of the known ichthyosaurs out there. Those are the dolphin-looking reptiles. Oh.
I didn't know.
So he is not
reptiles.
He is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're pretty interesting little buggers. One of them well be bigger than the blue whale, but that's hard to prove, and it's a different discussion entirely. Yeah. But this is a guy who has done a lot. And he did have to work harder because sadly his grades weren't. So I'm not saying you're cut off. I'm just saying, just from an economical and a streamlining standpoint, maybe we do need to have some harsh rules in place to get things moving. Yeah, because like realistically, we need people to have jobs and good, well-paying jobs and educated Americans.
Yeah.
More than we need someone to feel good about their little degree that they aren't going to be able to do much with. Like there are people who have art degrees, and if you love art, that's fine. But the reality is a lot of people get art degrees and have a hard time finding work.
Yeah. So maybe it would be some sort
art
of
is
thing
less
like,
relevant.
or maybe the system could be improved by just saying, if you have a like 2.0 or above or 2.5 GPA, then your community college will be free. But anything below, you're going to be charged for it, and you're going to have to get loans for it. You know, like if you're going to take advantage of this opportunity that they're giving you, you're going to have to really do it. So that would also cut out a lot of people who are like, I don't know if I want to go to community college, you know, but it's free. Well, it's only free if you do your work, you know.
So essentially you get fined, like maybe on your taxes, when you if you go to college and you waste their time.
Yeah, something like that. So that would be a way to remake some of the costs, but you know, at the same time, those are the people who are not going to be able to pay back the student debt. So like, what good is there in finding them? They're gonna be working retail for the rest of their lives, probably. Not that that's a bad thing, but
that's why I feel like just streamlining
profitable.
That's why I feel like streamlining the classes makes more sense, and streamlining how to get a degree is just the better alternative.
You know, and maybe
because right now in America, college is treated like a business instead of being treated like an educational system.
Yeah. So maybe instead of trying to fix the system we have now, they just need to create like a government funded, or maybe even a private business could create like free trade schools to train workers, you know? And there would have to be cooperation from companies to, like, you know, big companies, Google, Micron, HP, they'd have to say like, yeah, we are, you know, Amazon even, like, we're willing to hire people, you know, engineers who went to this trade school instead of spending 4 years to get a bachelor's degree. You know, we are willing to hire them at the same pay. And if they say that, if they're convinced to do that, if they see like the curriculum of this trade school that only takes maybe 1 or 2 years, then I think it could really take off, and there could just be a third option instead of either going to community college or a 4-year university. You know, there could be a third option of, well, what about going to a trade school? And that could be like, I know that there are trade schools that exist that make like, that train you in order to do like hair cutting or massaging or like some some
but have
specific
more for STEM
jobs.
fields.
Like my sister, I think, took a billing and coding, you know, medical billing and coding class, or like course for trade school, and so then she can then go out and get a receptionist job that needs you to be able to bill insurance, and you'll know how to do that because you were trained to. So that's not something that you need to spend a 4-year, you know, investment to get. That's something you could learn in a.
So you want trade school for STEM fields, essentially?
Yeah, I want trade schools expanded upon and normalized. That's what I want. Free, and they don't even have to be free.
I think that
as long as like maybe there could be just a reasonable sized loan, you know, student loan that could apply to it. And the government would be willing to give that. So it would be officially like acknowledged by the government as this is worthwhile to do. You know, here's the government student loans in order for you to do it. And once you've done it, then you're going to go straight into the field because the workers, you know, the employers have declared that that's good enough, that you don't need a bachelor's degree anymore. You just, if this specific trade school course, you know, curriculum will suffice for your training, so go ahead and do it. You know, get the thing, take way less time and start working and giving back to the economy, you know. It's just seems like that would should be something to prioritize.
Agreed. I think it's funny. The most controversial one was still the silly topic.
Yeah,
again.
we seem to spend a lot of time on silly things.
And that's fine. It's fun. It's a podcast. It's supposed to be fun. Maybe we'll find a really, really controversial one for next week.
Maybe a simple, silly one, so we don't spend too much time on it, so that we have to really get in depth with the next one. But yeah, I think we're kind of in agreement that, like, an education for people should be, is good to be provided for by the government. It would be in the government's interest to give people education, but our current education system maybe isn't equipped to handle that. So instead of making college free, just make a new college, a new type of college that's way better, I'm
not sure how I feel about that entirely, but I do like the sound of it currently. I would have to, but like, as I'm hearing about it, I like it. Like, it makes sense. Let's make sure people can do high-tech job or just higher education jobs without putting them through.
I mean, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, I feel like you're probably still going to have to go through 4-year university and then some to get the master's or doctorate that you need in order to do those jobs, because there is a whole lot to learn there. But if you're going to just do coding, then you don't need to learn English and art history and stuff like that, Just learn coding.
Yeah. So I feel like we're at a good point for this. Sorry, my throat is killing me.
Oh, no, understandable. Yeah, get well, man.
I will.
So, but yeah, this is going up on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, all the big guys, and on YouTube as well. We've got a Facebook page, so if you're listening, go search Nothing Specialty on Facebook, or go down to the description to find the link. And there's also a Twitter that's going to be announcing whenever there's new episodes out.
And please share us with your friends.
Yeah, definitely. If you think, we make a lot of arguments for things. So if you find something that we are saying that you think perfectly gives a good argument to one of your friends that you've had a run-in with, like, just link them the podcast, tell them the timestamps, say, like, listen to this. Doesn't this prove my point, and they'll listen to both sides of it, and they'll get to see all of our
and then they'll call me an idiot.
Yeah, and then they can go back and say you're stupid for listening to this show, because but you'd shared it, and so just like and share and comment and subscribe for more. So we love hearing from you. So thank you for lending us your ears. You may have them back now.
Have a great week.